Let me ask you something straight up. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt smaller than when you walked in? Ever replayed a moment in your head where someone talked over you, dismissed you, crossed a line, and you did nothing? And later you thought, why did I allow that? Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Disrespect doesn't start with them. It starts with what you tolerate. And the moment you change one thing, just one, everything about how people treat you begins to shift fast. This isn't about becoming aggressive. It's not about being loud or intimidating. It's about activating a signal so strong, so clear, that the human brain instantly recalibrates how it deals with you. When you do this once correctly, people unconsciously decide, this person is not to be messed with. Most people think respect is something you earn over time, that if you're kind enough, patient enough, useful enough, people will eventually value you. That belief is the trap. Respect is not earned first, it is signaled. And the strongest signal of all is a boundary that is enforced the moment it's crossed. Here's what psychology shows us. The human brain is a prediction machine. It constantly asks, what happens if I do this? When someone interrupts you and nothing happens, the brain learns interrupting is safe. When someone makes a joke at your expense and you laugh it off, the brain records mockery is allowed. You are training people every single day, whether you realize it or not. The one move that changes everything is this. The first time someone crosses a line, you respond immediately, calmly, and without over-explaining. That's it. One moment, one response, and the pattern is broken. Notice I didn't say react emotionally. Emotion gives away power. I didn't say justify yourself. Explanations sound like permission seeking. What you do instead is hold eye contact, slow your body down, and state your boundary as a fact. The nervous system reads certainty faster than language. When you are calm, grounded, and direct, the other person's brain instantly reassesses the hierarchy of the interaction. Think about this. Why do some people get respected without raising their voice while others get ignored even when they shout? It's because respect follows clarity. A clear boundary creates psychological friction. It tells the other person there is a cost here, and human beings are wired to avoid cost. What stops most people from doing this is fear. Fear of conflict, fear of being disliked, fear of making things awkward. But here's the breakthrough. The discomfort you avoid in the moment becomes the disrespect you live with long term. You either face a few seconds of tension now, or you sign up for weeks, months, even years of being subtly diminished. And here's the empowering part. You don't need confidence to do this. Confidence comes after action, not before. The first time you set a boundary, your voice might shake. Your heart might race. That's normal. But the other person doesn't experience your internal fear. They experience your external decision. And once you do it once, something incredible happens. Your nervous system learns, I can protect myself. That's where real confidence is born. This is why waiting is deadly. If you bring up disrespect days later, the brain treats it as negotiable. It sounds like a complaint. Immediate response reframes it as reality. You're not attacking, you're informing. You're saying this doesn't work for me. No drama, no story, no emotional dump. And here's the identity shift. When you enforce a boundary once, you're not just teaching them how to treat you, you're teaching yourself who you are. You move from someone who hopes for respect to someone who expects it. That expectation changes your posture, your tone, your decisions. People feel it before you say a word. Do this once, one clean moment, one calm stand, and watch how fast the world adjusts, because the world always responds to the level of self-respect you're willing to embody, not the level you wish you had. Most people believe communication is about what you say. Psychology says otherwise. Human beings respond first to energy, then to language. Before anyone processes your words, their nervous system is already deciding whether you're safe to ignore, safe to challenge, or someone who must be taken seriously. And that decision is driven almost entirely by your emotional state. Thought be about it. Have you ever seen two people say the exact same sentence, but one commands respect and the other gets brushed off? Same words, different state. One person is centered, grounded, certain. The other is tense, apologetic, emotionally reactive. The brain reads those signals instantly. Our disrespect thrives on emotional instability, not because you're weak, but because emotional leakage communicates permission. When you get flustered, overly excited, defensive, or eager to be liked, you're unconsciously saying, my need for approval is higher than my need for self-respect. And the moment that message is sent, people adjust their behavior accordingly. Here's the hard truth. People don't push boundaries with those who appear internally settled. They test people who look emotionally flexible. If your tone rises quickly, if your body tightens, if your face reacts before your mind does, you become predictable, and predictability invites control.br. This is why emotional mastery is power.br. Calm is not passive. Calm is dominant. A regulated nervous system communicates certainty at a prima L level. When you stay steady while someone is disrespectful, their brain experiences cognitive dissonance. They expect emotion. They expect reaction. When it doesn't come, they feel off balance. And whoever controls the emotional frame controls the interaction. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings. Suppression leaks. Mastery doesn't. Mastery means you feel the emotion but choose not to hand it to the other person. You slow your breathing, you relax your shoulders, you lower your voice instead of raising it. These microsignals tell the other person, I'm not threatened and I'm not seeking your validation. And here's the psychological twist. When you remain emotionally grounded, the other person often feels exposed. Their disrespect was meant to provoke. When it fails, they subconsciously downgrade their own position. That's when respect begins to form. Most people sabotage this by trying to sound nice. They smile when they're uncomfortable. They laugh when they're disrespected. They over-explain to soften the moment, but niceness without emotional stability is read as weakness, not kindness. The brain doesn't reward it with respect. It exploits it. When your emotional state is solid, you don't need to prove anything. You don't rush to be understood. You don't argue to win. You don't defend your worth. And that absence of need is magnetic. People instinctively mirror the emotional level you set. This is why leaders, not followers, dictate the emotional temperature of a room. They don't get pulled into chaos. They don't chase reactions. They choose their state first, and behavior follows. And here's the part that changes everything. Your emotional state is a habit, not a personality trait. You don't become calm by thinking about it. You train calm through repetition. Every time you pause instead of react, every time you breathe instead of explode, every time you hold steady instead of shrinking, you rewire your nervous system. You become someone who is harder to shake. Disrespect feeds on emotional volatility. It starves in the presence of grounded certainty. When people realize they can't pull you into drama, can't rush you, can't intimidate you, they stop trying. Not because you fought them, but because there's no payoff. The psychology is simple. Behavior that produces no reward eventually disappears. So if you want people to stop disrespecting you, stop broadcasting emotional permission. Choose your state first. Let your calm speak before your mouth ever opens. Because when your emotions are under control, the room listens, even in silence. Most people don't stay silent because they agree. They stay silent because they're shocked, unsure, or trying to keep the peace. And they tell themselves they'll address it later, when emotions settle, when the timing feels right. But psychology doesn't reward intention. It responds to timing. And timing is everything. When disrespect happens and nothing follows immediately, the brain closes the loop. In behavioral psychology, this is called reinforcement through absence of consequence. The mind learns fast, I did this and I got away with it. That lesson sticks far more deeply than anything you say days later. When you bring it up later, it doesn't land as authority, it lands as resentment. It sounds like a complaint instead of a boundary. The emotional weight of the moment is gone, and without that emotional context, your words lose impact. You're no longer shaping behavior, you're negotiating it. This is why people who say I'll deal with it later end up dealing with it forever. Immediate response doesn't mean emotional reaction, it means presence. It means acknowledging reality in real time. Even a short pause followed by a calm statement carries enormous power. The brain links cause and effect only when they happen close together. Miss that window and the opportunity to retrain behavior disappears. Think of how children learn. If a behavior is corrected instantly, learning is fast. If correction comes hours later, confusion sets in. Adults are no different, just more defensive about it. Here's what most people don't realize. Every time you delay, you lower your own credibility. Not in their yes first, but in your own nervous system. You teach yourself that your boundaries are optional, that self-betrayal shows up later in your posture, your tone, your hesitation, and people sense it long before you speak. Delayed reactions also give the other person time to rewrite the story. Memory reshapes itself. By the time you bring it up, they genuinely don't experience it the same way. Now you're arguing perception instead of correcting behavior. That's a losing game. Immediate response keeps the frame clean. There's no debate about intent, no buildup of emotion, no moralizing. Just a simple recalibration. That doesn't work. The simplicity is what makes it effective. And here's the fear most people carry. They think responding immediately will escalate the situation. In reality, it's the delay that causes escalation. Unspoken resentment leaks out sideways through sarcasm, withdrawal, passive aggression. That's what poisons relationships. Clean boundaries, delivered in the moment, actually reduce long-term conflict. Strong individuals don't store disrespect. They process it on the spot. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just decisively. And here's the paradox. When people know you respond immediately, they stop testing you. The first correction is the most important one. After that, your reputation does the work for you. You don't need to repeat yourself. The brain remembers pain faster than pleasure, and a single moment of clear consequence is enough to shape future behavior. This isn't about controlling others. It's about respecting yourself in real time. You are teaching people how to engage with you by what you allow to pass unchecked. If you want respect to be consistent, your response must be consistent. Not perfect, not loud, just timely, because the moment you stop postponing self-respect is the moment disrespect loses its power. Most people think strength looks like intensity. Raised voices, sharp words, long speeches defending their position. But psychology tells a very different story. Anger feels powerful to the person expressing it, but it signals loss of control to the person receiving it, and the brain never submits to someone who looks out of control. Anger invites resistance. Explanation invites debate. Calm certainty shuts both down. When you get angry, the other person's nervous system goes into defense mode. They stop hearing you. Their goal shifts from understanding to winning. When you over-explain, you unconsciously communicate doubt. You sound like you're trying to convince, not inform. And the moment you're trying to convince, you've already given away authority. Certainty doesn't argue. Certainty states, think about the people you naturally respect. They don't rush. They don't justify themselves. They don't pile on reasons. They say less, but every word lands heavier. Why? Because their emotional tone matches their message. There's no contradiction between what they say and how they say it. The human brain eye constantly scanning for congruence. When your voice is steady, your body relaxed, your words brief and final, the brain reads alignment. And alignment creates trust. Even if the other person doesn't like what you said, they respect the way it was delivered. Anger leaks need. Explanation leaks insecurity. Calm certainty leaks self-trust. And here's the deeper layer. Certainty doesn't come from being right. It comes from being decided. You don't need permission to decide what behavior you accept. The moment you internalize that, your entire presence changes. You're no longer seeking agreement. You're simply expressing a boundary. This is why silence used correctly is so powerful. After you state your boundary, you stop talking. You let the space do the work. Most people rush to fill silence because it makes them uncomfortable. But silence forces the other person's brain to process what just happened. It creates weight. Have you noticed how insecure people talk more when challenged, while secure people talk less? That's not coincidence. The brain associates brevity with confidence. When you say only what's necessary, it signals that you don't need to persuade. Calm certainty also protects your energy. Anger drains you. Long explanations drain you, but certainty is efficient. It preserves your internal state while still correcting the external behavior. And here's the irony. When you stop trying to make people understand you, they start listening. Because understanding is not what earns respect. Self-alignment does. You don't need to win the argument. You need to hold the line. When people realize you won't be pulled into emotional chaos, won't justify your standards, won't escalate or retreat, they adapt. Not because you force them, but because the interaction no longer gives them leverage. Calm certainty is unshakable. It doesn't beg, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't explain itself. It simply is. And in a world addicted to noise, the quiet certainty of someone who knows where they stand is impossible to ignore. Most people try to command respect in moments. Strong conversation here, clear boundary there, but respect doesn't stabilize until it becomes predictable. Human beings don't respond to who you are once. They respond to who you are every time. And that consistency is what turns behavior into identity. Reputation is not built on what you say you stand for. It's built on what you never compromise. The brain keeps score. People may forget your words, but they never forget patterns. When your actions consistently match your standards, others stop testing you. Not because they're afraid, but because the outcome is known. This is where most people fall back. They set a boundary once, feel empowered, then abandon it when they're tired, lonely, stressed, or afraid of losing connection. That inconsistency resets the entire psychological equation. The brain says, sometimes there's a cost, sometimes there isn't. And when the cost is uncertain, people test again. Consistent self-respect removes uncertainty. When you enforce your standards calmly every time, without drama, without resentment, without changing your personality, you become stable. Instability is deeply respected at a subconscious level. People trust what they can predict. They respect what doesn't wobble. This doesn't mean becoming rigid or cold. It means becoming aligned. You don't punish. You don't lecture. You don't remind people who you are. You simply act in accordance with your values again and again until no reminder is needed. Here is the powerful shift. When self-respect becomes embodied, you stop monitoring how others treat you. You don't scan for slights. You don't personalize behavior. You correct what needs correcting and move on. That emotional independence is felt immediately, and nothing earns respect faster than someone who doesn't need it to function. Your reputation starts speaking before you enter the room. People warn each other how to approach you, not because you're aggressive, but because you're clear. They know where the lines are, and clarity is safe. Chaos is what people fear, not boundaries. This is also where your relationships improve. Healthy people feel relieved around someone with consistent self-respect. There's no guessing, no emotional landmines, no passive aggression, just clean, honest interaction. And here's the final truth. Respect from others is a byproduct. The real win is self-trust. When you know you'll protect your own standards, you stop fearing disrespect altogether. You're not fragile anymore. You're grounded. Do this long enough, and something remarkable happens. You don't demand respect. You don't chase it. You don't perform for it. You become it. And when self-respect is who you are, the world has no choice but to respond in kind.